Hello everyone, today we will be doing The Scarecrow by Satyajit Ray. First of all, before starting the lesson, let us read a little bit about the author, Satyajit Ray, who was born on 2nd May 1921 in the city of Calcutta, now known as Kolkata, in West Bengal, into an illustrious Bengali family known for their contribution towards arts and literature. His anthology of nonsense rhyme, Abol Tabol, which was published in 1923, brought him immense fame as a writer of children's literature. It is also very important to remember that Satyajit Ray became one of the greatest filmmakers of the country. His first film, Pathar Panchali, in 1955, bagged 11 international awards, including one at the Cannes Film Festival. Rai is perhaps the only filmmaker in the country to have received 32 national awards, and in 1991 he also received an honorary Academy Award, also called Oscar Award. Satyajit Ray was also a proud recipient of Bharat Ratna. Rai was a novelist, a film critic, a music composer, a graphic designer, and an immensely skilled writer of short stories. His detective and science fiction stories featuring the sleuth, Feluda, and the scientist, Professor Sampu, respectively, are also widely popular. His short stories stand out particularly for their exploration of the supernatural and the fantastic, and for their lucid style and brevity of expression. This is all about the poet. Now, let's move to the lesson. First of all, before starting the lesson, let's look at the title, The Scarecrow. What is actually a scarecrow? Scarecrow is a figure made to look like a person in old clothes in order to scare away the crows away from the crops. And how are scarecrows made? Scarecrows, how are they made? It is usually fixed on two bamboo poles, one firmly placed particularly on the ground and another horizontally across it. So let's start the lesson now. In the lesson, the main protagonist is Mriganku Babu, whose full name is Mriganku Shekhar Mukhopadhyay. This story is all about Mriganku Babu's encounter with a scarecrow, who was actually his old servant Abhiram in disguise. The story starts with Mriganku Babu, who was a popular writer. So, a club in Dilbapur had invited him to a cultural function in order to felicitate him. Now, because of not getting a reserved seat on the train, he was compelled to travel by his car. So now we see that he has already informed his driver, whose name is Sudhir, about the problem of his car, that the petrol coach had not been functioning properly, but because of Sudhir's ignorance, their car went out of petrol just before reaching Panagarh. So now we came to know that Mriganku Babu was traveling from Durgapur back to Kolkata, but before reaching Panagarh, their car ran out of petrol, which Mriganku Babu had informed his driver Sudhir about the problem of his car, but Sudhir had not listened to him. Now they are being stranded on the road. The Sudhir decided to go to Panagarh to fetch petrol, which was about 3 miles away from where their car was stranded, and it will take almost 2.5 hours. So the thought of him Being all alone in a deserted place irritated him, and even though Babu was a very friendly natured man, it was really hard for him to contain his emotion at that point, because um, Sudhir, his driver, did not listen to him. So because of all those, they had to face such a problem in the middle of their journey. So now what happened? Out of boredom, um, he keep on changing his position. Now we know that Sudhir had already went to Panagar to fetch the petrol, and Mriganko Babu was all alone, was left all alone on the road. And out of boredom, he keep on changing his position. Sometimes he sit inside the car, sometimes he gets out of the car, and sometimes he read a book, sometimes he just stood on the road and then looked around the places. Uh, Now we came to know that it was the end of January. Mriganko Babu was looking around the places. On the western side, he noticed that the fields were barren and empty, and a small hut was also there. And he noticed that there was no sign of habitation. He also noticed that a row of palm trees and trees, and beyond which lay a dense forest. And on the eastern side, um, as well, the site was quite similar with the western side. There was a pond with little water, and he notices two huts, but there was no sign of people. He notices that there was a scarecrow in the middle of the field. And to the north, in the sky, there were clouds, but it was quite sunny where Mriganko Babu was standing. Then, after looking around the places, uh, he returned to the car and began reading the detective novel. While he was sitting inside the car, he notices that two ambassadors and a lorry had gone passing him. We came to know that since this place where Mriganko Babu was stranded, were Bengali in majority, he made an assumption saying that all Bengalis are selfish. Why? Because he notices that none of the drivers stopped their vehicles to ask him whether he need any help or not. Mm, Even though he himself was a Bengali, he thinks that Bengalis can never think about the welfare of others. Then what happened next was that as Mriganko Babu could not concentrate on his book, he decided to think a new plot for a story which Bharat magazine had asked him. But again, after that, he felt bored and got out of the car again, and he felt that it seemed he was the only human being in the world with no one around him. He felt completely desolate because as he have mentioned that even on the eastern side and on the western side, there was no sign of habitations, and he was all alone in that place. So he felt completely desolate in that place. Just then, he notices a scarecrow who was standing right in the middle of it, which was wearing a printed shirt. He felt that he had seen that torn red and black printed shirt before, but was not sure, and even though how hard he tried to remember, he failed to remember it. For some reason, Mriganko Babu, he felt that he was completely or strangely drawn towards that figure, and as time passes, he began to notice that the scarecrow was actually coming to life and advancing towards him. Then, after some time, he was felt with a tremor when that figure addresses him as Babu, who was indeed spoken with a human voice, and that voice was actually the voice of Abhiram. Then Mriganko Babu recognized it. After seeing the scarecrow advancing towards him and speaking in a human voice, Migamku Babu was really terrified, um, and um, that he almost felt a tremor. Then, after the scarecrow spoke to him, Migamku Babu recalled the incident that had happened 3 years ago. What happened 3 years back? So let's see. Um, 3 years ago, what happened was that um, Abhiram, his servant, now in disguise of the scarecrow, was a servant of Migamku Babu. He served his family for over 20 years. He was really a trustworthy servant. Once, one of Migamku Babu's watches, which he got as a wedding gift, was stolen. Then the whole family searched for it everywhere, but they could not find it. Hence, Migampu Babu's father called a witch doctor who told them that it was actually stolen by Abhiram. Um, Even though Abhiram had worked for them for a long 20 years, Migampu Babu's family believed the witch doctor so much that Abhiram ultimately had to lose his job and he was turned out from Migampu Babu's house. Abhiram begged justice for his own innocence but was of no uses. Then that is what Migampu Babu recalled after seeing Abhiram. Then Abhiram told him why he had become that scarecrow. Why? Because what happened was that um, after leaving that job, what happened to Abhiram was that he had to move back to his village, and there he was soon afflicted with dropsy and he suffered and died there. He was very sad that he could not prove his innocence. So Abhiram had to become that scarecrow because he hoped that that he one day he will meet his master, that is Migampu Babu, and reveal the truth behind the incident that had happened 3 years back, and so that Abhiram would prove his honesty before him. Then Abhiram told Migampu Babu to look under his wardrobe when he go home, and he assured him that he will find the watch that he had lost 3 years back lying under his wardrobe, which actually was there for the past 3 years because his new servant, Migampu Babu's new servant, um, never sweep each and every corner of the house that was mentioned by Abhiram, and because of that, Migampu Babu was not aware of his watch lying under his wardrobe. So what happened was that after Abhiram told Migampu Babu that when he find his watch there, he will know that Abhiram was not a thief. It was such a sad moment because when that incident happened 3 years back, Abhiram, even though he was a trustworthy person, or even though he has worked for Migampu Babu's for a long 20 years, just because the witch doctor had accused him of stealing, he was turned out from his house, and Abhiram never had the chance to prove his innocence. So um, now, after meeting Mriganko Babu here, um, he tried to prove his innocence, and he told him that he will be finding his watch under his wardrobe, and when he find his watch there, Mriganko Babu should will come to know that Abhiram was not a thief. After proving his honesty and revealing the truth, Abhiram said that he have found peace by telling the truth after so many years. Then Abhiram bade goodbye to Mriganko Babu, because Abhiram, after he was accused of being of stealing the watch, uh, his life was in mess, or he had suffered a lot. So he told Mriganko Babu that now he is at peace by revealing the truth and by proving his innocence to Mriganko Babu. Just then, Sudhir reached the place and his voice woke up Mriganko Babu. So we do not know that whether Mriganko Babu's encountered with the scarecrow or Abhiram was actually his was a reality or his imagination or his dream, but we have to think that it is actually an imagination, because he had fallen asleep in the car. Then what Mriganko Babu did was that after reaching home, he looked under his wardrobe, and as was told by Abhiram, after reaching home, Mriganko Babu looked under his wardrobe as was told by Abhiram, and to his surprise, he indeed found his gold watch lying there. Mriganko Babu was really very sad, because Abhiram was never given the chance to prove his innocence, and he was turned away from their house in charge of stealing. And Abhiram had to lose his job and move back to his village, and soon after that he became sick, and he died. So Mriganko Babu he felt very sad, because he doubted Abhiram's innocence on the basis of the witch doctors, on the words of the witch doctor. Therefore, what he decided that he will never seek a witch doctor's help, even if ever anything gets stolen from his house. That was what Mriganko Babu decided to do after that, after Abhiram proved his innocence. That is all about the lesson. So the story is all about Mriganko Babu's encounter with a scarecrow, who was actually his old servant Abhiram in disguise, and who was turned out from his house in charge of stealing, and who eventually proved his innocence to his master Mriganko Babu. That is all. Now let's move to the questions and answers. The first question is, what was the name of Mriganko Babu's driver? The name of Mriganko Babu's driver was Sudhir. Where did he go to fetch petrol? Sudhir went to Panaghar to fetch petrol. Number 3 questions. Name the magazine that asked Mriganko Babu for a story. That magazine was Bharat magazine. Whose voice did Mriganko Babu recognize in the voice of the scarecrow? Abhiram, his servant. Where did the scarecrow ask Megangko Babu to look for his watch? The scarecrow asked Megangko Babu to look under the wardrobe. Let's move to the next question. What did Sudhir not pay attention to? Sudhir, the petrol watch of Megangko Babu's was not functioning properly from before. He was unable to show the proper amount of petrol in the tank. He had pointed out this problem to Sudhir, but Sudhir did not pay any attention to it. So because of that, they had to face the problems and they had to be stranded on the road. Next question is, why did Megangko Babu go to Durgapur? Megangko Shekhar Mukhopadhyay was a famous and popular writer, so a club in Durgapur had invited him to a cultural function in order to felicitate him. The next question is, what kind of shirt was the scarecrow wearing? The scarecrow was wearing a red and a black printed shirt. Who was Abhiram? Abhiram was an old servant of Megangko Babu's who had worked for his family for a long 20 years and was turned out on the charge of stealing a gold watch that Megangko Babu had received as a wedding gift. The next question. What did Megangko Babu decided never to do again? As we have discussed in the lesson, after Megangko Babu found his watch under the wardrobe as told by Abhiram, he was really very sad and he regretted that he doubted Abhiram's innocence on the basis of the words of the witch doctors. Therefore, he decided never to seek a witch doctor's help if ever anything gets stolen from his house. Next question. Describe the western side of the road as seen by Megangko Babu. It is clearly mentioned in the lesson. Western side of the road as seen by Megangko Babu. On the western side, about 40 feet away from the road was a pond, but it did not have a great deal of water in it, and there were few trees visible as well. And the few trees that were visible were also far away, and except some thorny bushes, there were also 2 huts, but no sign of people. In the middle of the field, there was a scarecrow. That was what Megangko Babu saw in the western side of the road. The next question: why did Megangko Babu felt a tremor? When Megangko Babu saw the scarecrow, he felt that he had seen that shirt before which the scarecrow was wearing. He tried to recall the person who wore that shirt, but he failed to remember. Suddenly, he felt as though the scarecrow was actually coming to life or advancing towards him. The scarecrow came near Megangko Babu and introduced himself as Abhiram, an old servant. Seeing a scarecrow coming to life and speaking to him gave Megangko Babu a tremor. Next question: what happened to Abhiram after he left Megangko Babu? When Abhiram was accused of stealing the gold watch, he had to lose his job and was compelled to go back to his village. There he was soon afflicted with dropsy. He suffered and died because he does not even have any money to go to hospital. and so he suffered and died in their village. He was very sad because even though he was innocent, even though he did not steal the watch, um, he could not. He was very sad because he could not prove his innocence to his master. The next question, describe the scarecrow as seen by Mriganko Babu from the beginning of the moment when it addressed him as Babu. This clearly given in the textbook, in the lesson here. The question is, describe the scarecrow as seen by Mriganko Babu from the beginning to the moment when it addresses him. So when Mriganko Babu was on his way from Durgapur and was traveling back to Kolkata, just before reaching Panagarh, his car ran out of petrol, and he was stuck in a place where there was no sign of habitation. He was bored and decided to write something. It seems as if he was the only human being in the whole world. He had never felt so completely desolate by being alone. Just then he notices a scarecrow which was standing right in the middle of the field, and he noticed that the scarecrow was fixed in a bamboo pole and particularly on the ground, and another was placed horizontally across it. Then he notices that the scarecrow was wearing a printed shirt. He had seen that torn red and black printed shirt before, or at least it reminded him of something, and he tried very hard to remember, but he could not remember. Then what happened was that he, for some unknown reason, he felt completely drawn towards that scarecrow, and after some time he notices that the scarecrow was actually coming to life and it was advancing or moving towards him, and what he notices was that the scarecrow was actually spoken with a human voice to him, addressing him as Babu. At that moment, he At that moment, a tremor shot through Mriganko's whole body because he was so shocked that the scarecrow the scarecrow was actually coming to life, and he was actually addressing him as Babu. That was what which shocked, or which actually shocked Mriganko Babu, and because the scarecrow had actually spoken with a human voice to him. Can you see it? Number 2, the next question. The narrator circumstances that led Abhiram to leave Mriganko Babu. What did the latter do on reaching home? Narrate the circumstances that led Abhiram to leave Mriganko Babu. Why did Abhiram have to leave Mriganko Babu? Narrate the circumstances that led Abhiram to leave Mriganko Babu. Why Abhiram had to leave Mriganko Babu? So we know that we have already discussed that Abhiram was a servant of Mriganko Babu, and he had served his family for a long 20 years, and he was a very trustworthy person. But once one of Mriganko's Babu watches, which he got as a wedding gift, was stolen. The whole family, they searched everywhere, but they could not find it. So what Mriganko's Babu's father did was that he called a witch doctor, and with the help of the witch doctor, they found out that it was actually Abhiram who had stolen the watch. So even though Abhiram was a trustworthy person, the whole family believed the witch doctor so much that Abhiram was Abraham was turned out from the house, and ultimately he had to lose his job. Abraham begged justice for his innocence, but that was actually of no use. That was of no use. Then the second part of the question: what did the leader do on reaching home? On reaching home, Megangko Babus searched for his watch under the bedroom as suggested by, requested or as directed by the scarecrow or Abiram, and to his surprise, he found his watch there. And what did Megangko Babu realize after that? He realized that he realized his mistakes, and he realized his mistake, and he decided never to believe the witch doctors ever again, even if something gets stolen from his house. That is the last question of the lesson. I hope I am clear enough. Thank you. We will be having our next class some other day again. Thank you.